Hello and welcome to episode 81 of the Pure Tokyoscope Podcast. I am Patrick Macias, the author of the new book, Mondo Tokyo.
And I'm Matt Alt, the author of Pure Invention, How Japan Made the Modern World. Are you ready, Patrick, for an exciting episode today?
I've got my support animal right here with me, Matt. I think I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
What is your support animal? My support animal is Rumiko Takahashi, the mangaka, wearing a Def Jam sweatshirt. I found that picture online and it just sparks joy in me, Patrick.
Yeah, someone posted a picture of Rumiko Takahashi wearing a Def Jam t-shirt. I'm trying to figure out what era of Def Jam. Is this like Beastie Boys, Licensed to Ill? Is this Public Enemy? Is this early 80s?
It looks late 80s, 90s to me from that photo. I haven't seen a photograph of her recently, but that's like kind of the photograph's what I remember her looking like, which is a dangerous sign at my age. So I believe it's from quite some time. Is Def Jam even still around?
I'm sure they must be as like a licensing entity. I'm sure Universal Music or someone like that swallowed them whole like a long time ago. I'm not entirely sure.
Is it true they're the same as Manga Entertainment? Is that true?
Manga Man? Def Jam Man? Is he out there too?
Along with Pepsi Man and that graveyard of heroes who kind of turned into zeros?
I don't know what kind of cognitive dissonance I have where I can't really imagine Rumiko Takahashi and like Def Jam, like Ranma 1/2, Inuyasha, Urusei Yatsura, and like Public Enemy, the Beastie Boys, Run DMC.
It's a culture clash. It's a mashing of worlds. I don't know. I mean, who knew that she's an old school hip hop fan? Or maybe some fan just gave it to her and she just liked the way that the characters looked on it. I don't know.
It's like when you see an old grandma, like in the Shotengai, like in a Star Wars or like a Marvel t-shirt.
What it reminds me of a little bit is, and I can't remember if we talked about this before, like there was this period about a year ago when literally every human being in Tokyo had a cloth Trader Joe's tote bag. And there isn't a Trader Joe's in Japan. I don't know where these things came from or why somebody would be. Hiroko showed up with one. I don't even know where these came from. I should ask her.
You got to get right in her face and go, how many Trader Joe songs do you know?
I was into Trader Joe's before it was cool. Who is Trader Joe? Where is he? We should do an entire episode on that. I'm sure somebody has.
Tomorrow's Trader Joe, Ashan O Trader Joe. We're going to talk about that later.
In the annals of Joe, you have Crusher, right?
G.I. Joe.
You have G.I., you have Ashan O Joe, and then there's Trader Joe. So there should be an anime coming soon, which actually kind of leads us into one of our stories today about a place that has food, folks, fun, and now apparently an anime-themed PR campaign. Am I correct?
Yeah, Matt. It turns out that McDonald's is celebrating a new anime collaboration by launching a Los Angeles exclusive, WickDonald's, a version of McDonald's that's commonly featured in many popular anime shows.
Like the hot side hot and the cool side cool. It's Mac tonight. I can't believe I haven't eaten at McDonald's in like 10 years and all of these theme songs and stuff are running through my head. How far we've come from when McDonald's got sued by Sid and Marty Krofft for co-opting the HR Puff and Stuff characters, huh? Now they're co-opting anime.
Well, they're not co-opting, they're paying for it. They're paying the anime studio that made Naruto, Studio Pierrot, to animate like, I don't know, tons of these, like there's so many shorts, there's so many characters, there's all this stuff going on. This is like a big deal. I thought McDonald's was all tapped out after the Godzilla versus McDonald's commercials from like earlier this year. They were just getting started for this WickDonald's.
So the reason it's called WickDonald's is because in manga and anime and all sorts of Japanese pop culture, it's kind of a tradition that whenever you mention some big brand, you don't actually name the brand. You like name it something that is everybody will instantly associate with it, but you won't get sued for it. I think it started out as like a don't get sued thing. Like, for instance, in the original Evangelion TV series, one of the characters is always drinking Ebisu beer, but they spell it Yebichu, you know, or like instead of UCC coffee, it's like, I forget, JCC, whatever. It doesn't matter.
It's like wacky packages, basically.
It is like wacky. It's kind of like the Garbage Pail Kids. Where's my Garbage Pail Kids anime? But now McDonald's has kind of, embraced this and they're turning that frown upside down, Patrick. I think that's what we can say here.
The McDonald's announcement says, anime is a huge part of today's culture, and we love that our fans have been inviting us into the conversation for years. Meaning we love that our fans have no sophistication and will eat anything as long as it's cheap and salty and bad for them.
Yeah, Ronald. I'm just going to put this down on the table right here. Forget all of that marketing speak. This is the single biggest cultural mashup since Rumiko Takahashi wore a Def Jam sweatshirt.
Japan, America, how does this all work, man? I can't figure this one out.
Is it real? So wait, can I get this? So it's McDonald's because the manga artists always flip the M upside down to make a W, so it's W McDonald's. And did my ears deceive? This is LA only? Like we can't, like this isn't McDonald's worldwide. It's like only in LA.
They're doing the pop-up restaurant in LA only for now, but I'm assuming they'll have to do it in Japan. Otherwise, there'll be riots and, they'll set the embassy on fire like usual. But it says here the very first McDonald's appeared in 1981 in Cat's Eye. Actually, they spelled it Cat's Eyes. So this is like I'm going to have to write an angry letter to your editor here. Hey man, it's actually called Cat's Eye, singular, not plural.
Oh man, by the same gent who did City Hunter, if I'm not mistaken. Does that mean there's McDonald's and City Hunter? Probably. Those are part of the whole like extended universe, are they not?
God, there's so many characters. They released like a key art that has like, I don't know, like 20 different wacky characters. There's a lot of yellow here. There's a lot of red. There's a guy who looks like Gendo from Evangelion.
Yeah.
There's a guy with a hamburger for a head. There's like a Gundam style mecha. Like it's just so wacky and irreverent, Matt. I don't know how I'm going to survive this one. Which one are you going to cosplay as?
I'm gonna cosplay every which way but loose, Patrick. I think actually on a very serious note, because this is incredibly serious.
Very serious. Yeah.
It's incredibly. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this kind of thing because now people who are raised on anime since birth have aged into like executives at companies like this. So, and McDonald's is, it's a youth oriented company because nobody who eats that food can survive past about 30 years old. So it's kind of like Logan's Run. It's like going to McDonald's after age 30 is like Carousel. Was that Logan's Run? What movie is it with Carousel?
That's Logan's Run, Matt. You better believe it.
It's like, I always get it mixed up with like Logan's Run. What else was there back then? Demon Seed? Is McDonald's more like Logan's Run or Demon Seed?
I don't want to date myself, but when I first saw Star Wars, it was 1977 at the drive-in. We saw Star Wars first and our minds were blown. And then the co-feature was Logan's Run. And after about 5 minutes, we're like,
this isn't Star Wars. It's not Star Wars.
It's like a bunch of guys like in tunics walking around a shopping mall really slowly. I don't know.
Yes, like Peter Ustinov is like holding court in a food court in a shopping mall. I tried, I went through a old sci-fi flick phase for a while there, and like I watched THX 1138, which I really enjoyed. I think that director might have done something else after that, but I'm not.
He did some McDonald's commercials, I think. The ones with Birdie the early bird. Was that him?
And the one with the Grimace with like 8 arms instead of 2, the terrifying like proto like McDonald's land characters.
Evil Grimace. You're talking about Evil Grimace, Matt.
Hamburglar. He's been in jail for a long time now, though. But anyway, we watched Silent Running. That's another one from that time frame.
Andromeda's Strain or Zardoz or anything like that.
Dark Star by John Carpenter. And what else was in there? But yeah, Logan's Run was that was a tough one. That was really, really, really tough.
I've since grown to love it. I always kind of have it on in the background. That's like a heavy rotation. I'm always got my sci-fi classics queued up for whenever I have to take a long phone call.
It has hairstyles. It has like, they're wearing onesies. No, they're tunics. You're right. They're not onesies. They're tunics.
Yeah. Why wasn't Farrah Fawcett nominated for an Oscar for her performance?
Oh, man, Saturn III. How could I forget Saturn III, another film from that era?
I got a risky click for you, Matt. The deleted scene when Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett take ecstasy together.
I remember watching that film as a kid and having no idea what was going on. I was like tapping my fingers on the table, robot. And then like suddenly the movie's over. They defeat the robot after they take ecstasy. They defeat the robot by pushing him over sideways into like a pool of water. That's like, this is no Terminator 2. There's no lava pits.
It's not like Doctor Who where you can just like run up the stairs if the Daleks come after you.
When is McDonald's doing the extended Saturn III universe promotion?
The tie-up. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, like, actually, anime and hamburgers do have kind of an illustrious history together. I mean, there's like kind of these classic sort of memes out there taken from actual anime of like Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned, eating a hamburger from like a Dracula anime because he can no longer suck blood. So he has to try human food. And he does what I do when I need to eat human food, which is I eat a hamburger, right?
I thought you were going to say grown-up food. My favorite hamburger in anime is actually from the Gundam movies. Slegger, who is like the macho, like badass guy who kind of takes Amuro under his wing. Whenever he's coming in from like a sortie, whatever you call it out there, he in space, encounters in space. He comes back and eats a hamburger on board the White Base.
I've seen pictures of what Noah Bright from Gundam eating a hamburger, chowing down on one.
Sure, sure.
And of course, don't forget McCrossnolds, which to me was kind of the original. I guess this is after the debut of WickDonald.
McCrossnolds, yes, there was a McCrossnolds. When's that tie-up coming? And then didn't see, now the problem is everybody just like actually work in. They do the product placement. So, for instance, in that, what was that, Hathaway's whatever, the new recent Gundam like OVA, it was like Jollibee, the Filipino hamburger
The Filipino
chain.
fast food chain, yeah, home of the champ.
Exactly. No, there's like shades of Demolition Man when like Taco Bell is the only restaurant left standing. I guess in Gundam's universe, it's either Jollibee or some American fast food joint.
All I got to say is Burger King better be worried, man. They got to come up with something fast in this this burger war that we got going on here. Where's the beef, Matt? Is my personal question to you this week.
Are you down with the king? Is that what you're saying?
Burger Chef, Dairy Queen. I don't know.
It should be. Wait a second. Burger King, King Ghidra. This is 3 burgers at once, guys. Are you listening? Are you listening, Burger King?
The last time I was at Burger King in Japan, the movie The King's Speech was out, and they literally had the Burger King speech, like Japan only promotional. I'm not making this up. They literally had something called The Burger King's Speech.
Did the clerks all have to stutter when they took your order? Is that what was going on? Wow. That's kind of, I don't know if that's the tie-up you really want.
That's not really a happy meal necessarily, to get like a little figure of, I don't even know who's in that. Some old white person. I don't know.
It's sure like a one of those kinkeshi, one of those kinnikuman erasers, but it's of whoever starred in that movie, which is, there's no
An old white
robots.
person.
There's no robots or kaiju in it, so I don't see it.
Not a lot of cosplayers of the King's Speech I see, like at the anime cons, very
So
often.
anyway, any listeners who happen to be in Los Angeles and need 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese with a side of anime, please dine at McDonald's and let us know how it went.
WickDonald's, man, or
I'm sorry,
WhackDonald's.
WickDonald's. This sounds like suddenly Keanu Reeves is going to come like bursting through the door with a handgun. I don't know. That's probably not funny in America, that kind of joke.
But this is, how about Wick Wick Whack?
Wick.
That's my old school hip hop reference for the show for the week.
Is that like the Miggity 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 Mac from? That's from. Oh God, what are they called? Crisscross. Speaking of Def, well, I don't think those guys were Def Jam. I don't know who they were. Wow, we're way off. We managed to spin that thread into 15 minutes of absolute insanity.
Good content, Matt. Good content. But I think we're just trying to avoid the next story because this is a painful one, especially if you live here. We have nothing to look forward to this year except the hottest year Japan has ever seen.
2023 was marked by intense, unrelenting heat across much of the world, including in Japan, where all-time temperature records seem to fall weekly throughout the summer and well into autumn. 2024 may well end up worse. Record February temperatures, including highs of between 18 and 20 C this past week across much of Japan, including northern areas, are a foreboding development in a year that experts say is likely to be the hottest in Japan's history.
Yeah, it was crazy warm last week. It was really, really warm. Like I would say 75 degrees-ish in the middle of January or whatever month this is, year. I don't know.
What day, Matt?
What is it? What's the date? Give me your clothes. Now it's cold. It's cold today. It's like freezing rain. And we had snow like a week or 2 before that. So stop the world, Patrick. I want to get off.
Yeah, the prophecies of Nostradamus are coming true one after another, Matt. In the year 1999, it's all going to come to a head. I saw a movie about it one time.
I actually wrote a piece on this last year for the New Yorker because Japan had its hottest summer on record since they started keeping records in like 120 years. And it was brutal. Summer lasted well into October last year. And when I first moved here 20 years ago, when it like August was always this like clammy, nasty, sweaty, gross, 100% humidity, 110% humidity, the doldrums, the dog days, whatever you want to call them. But it hit that first week in September and bam, it was like a fever breaking. And suddenly it was fall. And then you had like a month of really nice light jacket weather. And then it got to winter. Now it's like summer and then bam, it goes right into winter. There's no it's like 90 degrees, 100 degrees right up until November. And then suddenly it gets cold. I'm exaggerating, but it's bad.
Fall was literally like a week last year. Like there's no doubt in my mind.
I didn't have any chance to get my hot new looks for fall for my Sears wish book out. Like I couldn't, like none of those plaid pants or anything that I've been wanting to rock. It really
No, your
sucked.
mom took you to Sears, you buy all your new clothes, and then bam, it's winter. What are you gonna do? You have to wait till Christmas to get those new socks from grandma.
It's so they're saying now they being I forget who said it, who did it.
The Weatherman? What's his name? Is he Marvel or DC? The Weatherman. I'm not entirely sure.
So apparently this year is going to be even worse. Great. Just great, Patrick.
They're blaming it on various causes, including El Nino, Matt. Do you know this famous Mexican masked wrestler, El Nino? Did he fight Dracula or Frankenstein or something?
I thought they were going to say that it's entirely due to all of those little go-karts that people are driving around Shibuya dressed like Pikachu that are not affiliated with Nintendo, by the way. I just want to make that absolutely clear right now. But those things must be farting out plenty of exhaust into the atmosphere. Maybe it's all of the millions of people who are visiting Shibuya Scramble. There's like literally airplanes just landing right next to Shibuya Scramble right now. People are getting out, filming themselves, walking across it, getting back on the aircraft and leaving again.
The sooner we can offload them into like a virtual Shibuya that they can enjoy from home, the better. And they're saying this is going to have some real serious repercussions this time. Well, they always say that, but this time, poor harvest yields.
Yes.
They're also saying like weird sea life is like in places it shouldn't be. Like they're finding sperm whales in like Osaka Bay. They're finding dead sperm whales in Osaka Bay. Like that's going to impact the environment there now too.
Isn't this where the X from outer space comes from? He's like a giant sea or Gappa. Maybe is this where Gappa comes from? That the warming temperatures are screwing up the seas. It's called like the what is it called? It's like the South Pacificization, the Nankaika of the Tokyo Bay. And so they're having like sea anemones and like clownfish and all of these, lionfish, all of these animals that you would normally not associate with being in Tokyo Bay are there. And then that throws off the harvest of things that, are really important to people, like, say, I don't know, sardines and things like that, whitefish.
Sushi. That's what my ex-wife called me.
Is everything a joke to you, Patrick? Everything? It is to me. What else? Yeah, the rice harvests are predicted to get worse, which is a little odd to me, I think, because, some of the most abundant rice harvests come from places that are way warmer than Japan. So I don't know how that works. Maybe it's just the strain of rice that they're growing here. But it's a problem. It's really a big problem. It's not just annoying. It actually screws up all sorts of things. And when I was writing that piece for the New Yorker, it was interesting because there's all these impacts on Japanese culture now. Like, for instance, it's really tough to compose seasonal haiku because these keywords that you use have shifted from there's like these keywords that you use at like certain times of like September or August or June. And like for thousands of years or however long haiku have been in existence, these kigo worked and now they don't. Another thing that's being affected are kimonos. Like there's really specific seasons for when you wear kimono, like certain types of kimono. And now because the heat is continuing on so long, you're forced to wear like
a bikini, a furkini.
It's worse. Like September, you have to shift into like the winter kimono at that point. And so it's rough. It's rough for like all forms of traditional culture too. So
I've got the world's tiniest violin playing for all those seasonal haiku out there right now, Matt, because my electric bill is going to be insane this year.
This is true. Yes, that's true too. And yes, there's a lot of human suffering, but there's cultural suffering too. That's all I'm saying. It's a big problem.
Especially since they raised the price of my favorite popsicle, the Gari Gari Kun, from 60 yen to 65 yen. That means there's like maybe one less I can buy in a 3-month cycle or something.
Once you get your allowance. Yeah, well, and also you have to buy more of them because, Gari Gari Kun has a season just like kimono or haiku. You have to stop buying them in September because that's when it gets cold out traditionally. It's true. They do swap out different flavors and stuff, for the seasons. I think that's all going to get screwed up by this.
Isn't there a corn potage Gari Gari Kun that's like exquisite? That's like
Yes.
the most delicious thing you've ever tasted?
I love picking chunks of corn out of my dessert. It's a wonderful thing to do.
Is it true what they say about corn, Matt?
Is it true what they say about Gari Gari Kun? Is it true? What do they say about Gari Gari Kun?
There's a whole song by Dany Groove about Gari Gari Kun. And as the kids like to say, it is a banger. It has a lot of riz.
It's not mid.
The lyrics are very memorable. Ore no Gari Gari Kun.
What is up with Dany Groove and doing these kind of crossover things? They did the Mononoke dance, I believe, for Gekiga no Kitaro. They did the theme
did
song.
they? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Pretty sure that's Dany Groove. They were like the first Japanese rap band I ever heard. I remember coming here and somehow finding their album when I was like, must have been like 89 or 90. And
Before the Teriyaki Boys, Matt?
before De La Soul dropped, what was that album called? Balloon Mind State or something? I can't remember. It was like their third album, and it had one track that had a bunch of Japanese rappers on it who are all rapping about like De La Soul being late showing up to the recording session, which is actually really funny. But anyway, yes, Dany Groove, a seminal Japanese rap band. I don't know what this has to do.
No, my summer jam is the Gari Gari Kun song by Dany Groove. We're going to play a little bit right here.
Onward and upward or downward.
Well, we have something to look forward to this year, Matt. At least people who like to read manga in English do.
Okay.
Ashan O Joe, the legendary manga from the 1970s, known as Tomorrow's Joe in English, is going to be published in English by Kodansha Comics.
Kodansha Comics has licensed the classic manga Ashan O Joe, Tomorrow's Joe, which has sold 20 million copies and had a major impact on Japanese culture but has never been officially translated in English until now. The series, by Isao Takamori and Tetsuya Chiba, was originally published as 20 volumes in Japan. Kodansha will release it as 8 oversized hardcover volumes, beginning in December 2024, with an MSRP of $59.95.
That's really big news. I would actually go so far as to say that you can't understand manga without having read Ashan O Joe.
What?
It's that key to manga's evolution from kind of kid stuff in the early 60s into what it became in the 70s, which is a degenerate mass of everything we love about manga today. Yes. Have you read it?
No, but I did watch the anime, and I was really kind of shocked because, Ashan O Joe is very legendary boxing anime manga here in Japan, and I just assumed that it was going to be like Rocky, like Joe is like this, lovable loser, up-and-comer with a lot of talent, and he like trains hard and becomes the best. But he's an asshole, Matt. He's like a total jerk. He's almost like the villain of the piece. Like he deliberately just ruins everyone's life and like self-sabotages, but he's like unyielding. He refuses to be broken in spirit, which I guess is why all these domestic terrorists loved him back in the day.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? So like Ashan O Joe was so kind of steeped in leftist philosophy that a lot of these extremist groups read it in place of Karl Marx, literally. Like we're talking like the Red Army, we're talking student protesters. And then famously, when a splinter group of super extremists hijacked a plane from Haneda Airport to Pyongyang, North Korea in 1970, it's a famous incident called the Yodo-go incident, named after the aircraft. Who knew aircraft had names? But 8 men and women stormed onto this plane with samurai swords and like pipe bombs, I believe. And they successfully hijacked it to North Korea. And when they claimed credit for the hijacking, which they did by mailing a letter right before they got in the plane. How like 1970 is this? It was just long screed about their politics and stuff, and it ended, never forget, we are Ashan O Joe.
Are they trying to shift the blame? We didn't do it. This fictional
Joe Yabuki did
character
it.
did.
Well, the mastermind of it, who like got arrested and spent like most of the 70s, 80s, and 90s in prison, I believe. He wrote a memoir in the early 2000s, and he was saying that back in the 60s, if you were revolutionary, all you did was read Ashan O Joe, Shirato Sanpei's ninja manga, anything that was in Shonen magazine.
Kamui Gaiden?
Kamui for sure. The manga itself, Ashan O Joe, like you said, Tomorrow's Joe, is a boxing manga. But it's about this kid, he's like, he comes up from nothing, and he's really discriminated against by society, and the only way he can kind of make himself heard is through his boxing.
I thought it was going to be a story about a guy learning to be the very best, but it's really about rebellion. It's really about like being an outsider and having to like fight everyone against you. That must have tickled the fancy of these guys in the Red Army.
Well, I think it's interesting that when people talk about Spokon, which is sports konjo, which is like sports training manga, because there's a whole genre of sports manga, as you know. Ashan O Joe is one of those, but I think more people more fondly remember Star of the Giants, Kyojin no Hoshi, because it's less political and more about sports. So there's that. But I don't think Kyojin no Hoshi has ever been done in English either, come to think about it.
No, it hasn't. I mean, I don't think Ashan O Joe is political, but I'd really never seen a depiction of like the slums of Japan like that before in popular entertainment. I think it's set like in Sanya, the Sanya district of Tokyo, which is like a lot of laborers and like homeless people. Like it's the hood, as Rumiko Takahashi.
Only when she's wearing her Def Jam shirt. I'm really curious who translated it. It looks like they're putting it out in a series of like really glossy high-end volumes. So like the funny thing is no actual political revolutionary will be able to afford afford to buy them. Maybe they deliberately did that so as not to spark a revolution in the United States with the comic book. But no, superficially, it's not political at all. It's just, like you said,
It's an outsider underdog rebellion story. Yeah. That comic is everywhere in Japan. Every place you go that has like
Yes.
manga, like a ramen shop or like a place you get your hair cut, like if they have manga, there's gonna be some Ashan O Joe there.
It's such a dude manga too. It's a guy thing, It's like a guy thing you girls wouldn't understand, It's as Hiroko would put it. She once said this to me. I forget about what. Like that manga looks so sweaty to me, And I was like, yeah, I can see. There's actually a lot of sweat beads drawn on the characters, and the style of Ashan O Joe is what's known as gekiga, which is a word that was coined in the mid '60s to refer to that kind of obsessively cross-hatched, like really graphic novel-esque style of more, I don't know if you want to call it realistic, but not so cartoon-ish.
It's got a lot of texture. There's a lot of texture in that cross-hatching. It's not as cartoony as Tezuka. It's not as clean. It's got a roughness to the illustration style.
I don't think a lot of people realize, like, manga is a word that's widely used today to refer just to illustrated Japanese entertainment in general. But back in the 60s, like a manga was Tezuka and Ishinomori and all of those Disney-inflected artists who were drawing the kind of bubbly, kawaii-looking characters. And they might have been dealing with serious themes, but they had this kind of kawaii, rounded look. And gekiga was this like reaction to that. And Yoshihiro Tatsumi coined it as part of this gekiga workshop, which was him and Takao Saito of Golgo 13 fame and a couple of other guys who were doing these kind of what they called gekiga style illustrations. And it really took over. And really, the manga we read today, even the stuff in Shonen Jump, is much more gekiga than it is manga. But everybody just calls it manga now.
They have both kinds, country and Western.
Yes, exactly. Yes. This is a cool moment because, manga fans tend to skew really young, but manga has a very long history. And it's when I was your age, I read manga walking to school uphill both ways, and Ashan O Joe was not one of those. But I wish it was.
The first time I ever heard of Ashan O Joe must have been in Fred Schott's Manga, and they had a picture of a funeral that they had in real life for a real character. I'm not going to say who it was, who dies in the manga. And there was a funeral that like a Buddhist priest performed in front of like 700 crying, sobbing fans who like filled the ring up with flowers, an actual boxing ring. When I saw that, I was like, wow, man, they never did that for Robin when they killed him in Batman.
That funeral was a sort of precursor to fan movements of the 70s, because I think that happened in the late 60s, very early 70s.
Early 70s.
Yeah, early 70s. And then you have in the mid 70s, you have things happening like Comic Market and then the Space Cruiser Yamato film.
Where like fans are like throwing flowers at the screen, like literally in the final minutes of the movie.
Then you have Gundam and you have people running in with Polaroid cameras trying to get pictures of Sailor Mass naked in the bathtub. Cats and dogs living together.
Well, I just see it as like the lines between like the fans, fiction, and reality all kind of blurring for the first time, like in Japanese pop culture, like in manga. To me, that was the Ashan O Joe moment.
It's no, totally. I mean, it's where your choice in entertainment becomes an identity and a lifestyle. And Japan really pioneered that. Now it's like everywhere, all over the world. And it doesn't even have to be comic books. Your identity can be based around some insane politician, for instance, or it can be based around a musician. All of these parasocial relationships. But I think Japan pioneered parasocial relationships with cartoon characters. Way to go, Japan.
This reminds me to stand up at my local McDonald's and loudly shout, "We are Ashan O Joe" on the table.
Before you hijack the restaurant into what, hot cuisine? What are you gonna hijack a McDonald's into?
Before I hijack Birdie the early bird with a samurai sword.
The problem with Japanese McDonald's is they don't have those McDonald Land weird like fiberglass theme parks. Did you have one? Did they have those near you when you were growing up?
Well, they did when I was growing up. Yeah, that was like, a long time ago. They don't have those anymore
That
now.
long ago.
They have like bulletproof glass now, and they have like metal detectors. Kids like to play with those way more than they do like, I don't know, merry-go-rounds made out of hamburgers with googly eyes.
Why was there no Shakey's Land? Can you imagine? It would be like one of those old-timey washboard bands. What do you call those? Dixieland Jazz?
I just want to put this on the table, Matt. ChuckECheese Anime. I think it's time. I think it's time to hire Toei Animation or, someone like that. This is it. ChuckECheese Anime.
Well, with Five Nights at Freddy's sweeping the Oscars, now is our chance to get this greenlit. It's true. It does need to be made. I think it's important. It's important culture.
It has to end with the anime version of ChuckECheese singing "The Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson that they used to play in the restaurants back in the day.
I actually never ever watched what was it called? The Chuck E Band. Because I was always like cadging quarters off my parents to go play Spy Hunter. Because I was a man, Patrick. When I became a man, I put away childish things like the ChuckECheese Band and picked up adult things like Spy Hunter. Is that in the Bible?
I had to go back and forth. I swang both ways, as they like to say back in the 1980s. But I think it's as good a time as any is to end this segment with the hopes to inspire an anime version of the Chuck E. Cheese.
Are you listening, Chucky?
Are you listening, Chucky? We want to inspire you all and inspire the world with Chuck E. Cheese's rendition of The Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson.
Only kidding, Chucky. I've changed my tune because I finally thought of a possible dream that we can all share.
What is it? Squally?
It's a dream about a world when nobody is poor or sick or hungry.
Oh, now that's a dream we can make come true.
I'm gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. Gonna make a difference. Gonna make it right.
As I point up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing my mind.
I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their need? A soundless disregard, a broken bottle top,
and a one-man soul. They follow each other on the wind, you know, 'cause they got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer.
If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change.
I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Chucky, sometimes I see a people starving. They can't afford to eat pizza, so they die of dysentery.
You sound like Vlad the Impaler there. I'm not exactly sure.
It's my strong Transylvanian accent that I picked up, when I was a child. I don't know how that happened. Probably from Count Chocula. I think that's where I got it.
When is the extended Tricks universe? Somebody is going to make a Sentai out of serial characters. It's going to happen.
Someone's got to make a gekiga, The Adventures of Shaky Johnson, where he's like in World War II, like suffering from malaria and acquires the shake, as they call it.
If Barbie can make $1 billion at the box office, I think Shaky Johnson can do it too. We're counting on you, man.
Jared Leto as Shaky Johnson, I think, or Joaquin Phoenix, one of the two. They can battle it out for supremacy.
It'll just be called Shaky, like in that big Joker font. But this has already been done. Isn't Shakes the Clown by Bobcat Goldthwait about that?
Shakes the Clown. Good movie. Wow.
Well, they say it's the Citizen Kane of alcoholic clown movies.
Do we know who owns the IP for that? Can we launch like a line of apparel or something like that? Is Shakes the Clown anime?
Extended universes, Patrick.
Shakey's the Clown.
We can cross these over. Shakes and Shakies, plus all of the serial cartoon guys. ChuckECheese. Who's the antagonist? I know who the protagonist is, but who's the antagonist?
The weak yen-dollar exchange rate, I think, is the real villain right now.
Is that man versus man, man versus nature, or man versus his self when we're fighting against the yen-dollar exchange rate? I think it's man versus God.
Man versus Godzilla. Okay, so we want to thank everyone for listening to the Pure Tokyoscope podcast. We'll be back next week with a new episode. In the meantime, we are on our hands and knees begging you to help spread the word, help spread the love, and let all your friends and family join the Pure Tokyoscope death cult today. Thanks for listening.
We are food, folks, and fun. See you next time.
See you next time. Bye.